Hey everyone, Beth Barany here for How to Write the Future podcast. I am your host, and today with me, I have my husband, Ezra Barany. We are both writers. I am a creativity coach for writers and an award-winning novelist in science fiction and fantasy. And I help writers go from seedling of an idea all the way to publication. And my specialty is science fiction and fantasy. Today, we're going to talk about writing speculative fiction for social change. Ezra's got some great questions for me. And if you have a question, be sure to ask it in the comments at howtowritethefuture.com or tag me on social media. If you would like more support around your world building for your science fiction or fantasy novel, be sure to stay to the end and I will tell you how to get some more help. All right, that's it. Yeah, take it away, Ezra.
Great. So you know how most politicians, they get up out of bed and they said, today I want to emulate Wall-E, because that's who they want to be. How can these science fiction and fantasy narratives we write effectively influence policymakers and social movements?
Like Wall-E? Like Wall-E? I don't know if the message got across. Exactly. I honestly don't know, except only in retrospect do we see science fiction and fantasy stories, especially science fiction, having an impact. And Star Trek's the best example.
Yeah.
People who watched Star Trek as children and then later on became scientists and tech folks, and they talk about how what was shown on the screen there drove them. Like, I want to make a tricorder. Oh my gosh, transporter. How could that work? Warp speed. How could that work? We don't know when we created. When they were creating the show, they were saying, let's change society. Let's make a Western in space. Yeah.
Wait, that actually does lead into the next question. How can writers effectively use speculative fiction to highlight current social issues?
Yes.
Because what you were talking about was more tech stuff.
Yeah.
But now talking about social issues.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Current. Yeah. Science fiction is great for this. In fact, I would say that science fiction is a wonderful lens to use to highlight social issues. And coming back to Star Trek, just because it's so handy, there's an interracial kiss in the story. We have a Black woman played by Nichelle Nichols. She is not a maid or a singer or someone's girlfriend. She has a full-on role in the show. So the values of the creator, Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek. And many people have taken those ideas and brought them forward into the current franchise. So he had values where all people are included. All people have value. Let's put people of all kinds of people. So you have characters who are being portrayed in media as having full roles with interesting things to do and say and had an active role in the plot. And here Gene Roddenberry put them in these active roles. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So,
well, there was one episode where there are two people. So there's one whose right side of their face was white, their left side of the face was black, and they were calling the other people lower class or not worthy because they were black on the right-hand side and white on the left-hand side. And it really brought out the social justice issue of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of Elizabeth Moon's books has the technology of longevity. And I'm actually playing with this as well in my upcoming story. But what happens when you have a society where people can live longer and longer, and so people are staying in power who are older and older? That creates a problem for the younger generation. When do they get to take the reins of power? And now you've got some older ideas, enmeshed ideas that don't get to cycle out and no room for new ideas, new people and new ideas. Elizabeth Moon is a contemporary writer, and she's been writing about that issue, I think those books came out in the 80s. We still have that problem, right? Of older leaders in the world not making room for new, younger generation. And I know you wrote a story about a society where everyone was expected to wear beige clothing, and then one woman wanted to express her individuality by painting and bringing in bright colors, and how that was
taboo.
That was taboo. So that's a great commentary. If everyone is only supposed to be dressing the same, acting the same, then where's the room for individuality?
And that kind of leads into the next question, which is how does world building contribute to drive social change?
Huge. There's a famous book called Utopia, written back in the 16th century. And that really started the movement around people thinking about utopias and writing about them and trying to create them in real life. And this is also a theme that I realized I'm trying to build a utopia on one of my space stations in my current work in progress, the next JD novel. And knowing that, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to have a builder who had this aspiration. And then we get to see how it plays out. By the time my main character is there, it'll be 70 years plus from the origin of that station. So she gets to see, oh, this was built with all these values to have kind of a utopia, but here's what's actually working or not working. So knowing the broader, I guess, worldview of the people who create the societies that you're building for your story is going to help you understand knowing why was a community created and then what are the consequences of that in real time for your main character.
Going back to my story, it was all about gender neutrality. And so there were colors that were too feminine and colors that were too masculine. And so they said, you know what, let's just everyone wear beige so that everyone's equal. And this woman just wanted to express herself in her femininity and use colors in her paintings and the like. So that defined the direction of what this character was going through and the results and challenges of such a world.
And that also brought up the social issue of conformity versus nonconformity, group versus individual. Yeah, really great topics. And I just want to say science fiction is a great place to explore the social issues and to push the boundaries of what we could be. And I know a lot of people write dystopia and a lot of people want to watch dystopia, but my premise is why don't we also use our imagination to imagine the better parts of humanity? What would it look like if we did take care of everyone? What would it look like if instead of gender neutrality, what if all flavors could exist? What if, simply put, what if male and female colors, well, that didn't exist? And people are people. What are the ramifications and how do people handle that? And of course, you're going to still have conflict because I think conflict is just part of life. But science fiction allows us to, especially science fiction, but fantasy can do this too, to explore different dynamics, different power dynamics, different group dynamics, and different ways of parceling out the goods that we all need to survive.
Nice. Last question. So what strategies can writers use to make their social messages resonate without being preachy?
Yes. So this is something that you and I have talked about, this great technique of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Maybe in your story, you want to bring in this idea of gender equality. Let's just pull something out of the air that is also happening around us. So maybe your main character thinks that the way the genders are treated is just fine. But maybe you have another character in your story who's advocating for gender equality that doesn't quite exist in your story world. Now you put these two characters together, one who thinks it's just fine and the other who's like advocating for change. You put them together and you create a reason why they have to be together. Yes, I am thinking of romance because this is often done in romance where you create a way that the two love interests have to be together. They have to solve an external problem and in the process, learn each other's perspective. And by the end, maybe they come to a nuanced understanding. It's not all black or it's not all white, but there's actually a nuanced understanding. And that's what the synthesis is. You want to give your character a point of view and you want to give characters around them other points of view. And it might not just be two, it might be 3 or 4 or 5 different points of view on the topic. And then you want to make your central challenge in the story deal with that issue so that everyone gets to chime in and it's not a simple issue that's being dealt with in the story. And then by the end, you have your protagonist, ideally, who has gone through some kind of transformation. And also the secondary character, if you are doing a romance, it's great if both characters get to have a transformation. So now you've taken this idea of the way things should be, and now it's not the way things should be. It's a lived experience for your character from A to Z, and same for your secondary characters and tertiary characters even, and maybe the society or environment or town. Everybody gets an opportunity to shift and grow and transform in some way. And now it's not an idea, it's a lived experience that has real consequences for your characters and for their surrounds and their environment.
There was one book I wrote that was asking the question that perhaps the main character was wondering. He might have asked himself, what do women want? And throughout the book, there were women of different wants and different goals and different desires. And so at the end, he has this conclusion. Originally, I had 3 pages where he reflects on everything he experienced and learned from it. And I realized that was preachy. So I cut it down to just 2 sentences or 3 sentences, something like that. And I remember getting a review saying, oh, thank goodness you came to this conclusion without just shoving it down readers' throats, and you just said it simply. Yeah, it's
That's
good
great.
to do it that way.
Yeah. So 1 or 2 sentences where they realize, oh, I used to think this, I realized that, or even just the realization. And if it comes out as very natural and in their natural thoughts or in dialogue is actually better, that's so powerful.
That's great.
Good. Good. If you would like more support around writing your speculative fiction, science fiction or fantasy, or some wonderful mashup of that, and especially help with your world building, then be sure to check out our world building workbook for fiction writers. It's a PDF that will help you work through, it's a workbook, all the different aspects of your story world. And if you have any questions, be sure to contact me at Beth Barany on any of the social channels, or you can write me at howtowritethefuture.com. You can even leave me a voicemail, which no one has done yet. So be the first.
This is the finger wagging moment.
The finger wagging moment. This is episode 158, and no one has left me a 30 to 60 second voice message. You could be the first.
Yay.
Yay. All right. This has been fun. We've done 3 episodes in this little series. Ezra and I'll have to have him back for another series at some later date. Or if you have a special topic for him, we can put him in the hot seat and have him do an episode.
Let me just, what can people get? The first person who sends a voice message, what will you commit to right now as a free gift?
You can get, if you leave me, oh, that's really great. Incentive. If you leave me a voice message through howtowritethefuture.com and you're the first person, you get to have any book of your choice from my catalog.
Sweet.
Or Ezra's catalog. And either digital or signed. We will ship it to you because I love to do that.
That's fun.
With a bookmark, because we have bookmarks.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Ezra, oh my God. All right, this episode is long enough. Do you want to say our line that we say at the end?
Happy birthday.
That's
No, you do it because you're the best.
Oh, okay. I'm the best. All right. In honor of Star Trek and something that I say at the end of every episode, write long and prosper.